Hey everyone, how you doing? So I was just showing Mike and Kevin what I learned this morning. I'm gonna play for you guys real fast. It's kind of fun. So I've been playing around. My daughter wanted to learn how to sing something, so I figured this out. So I can get this right. Ever recognize that?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was playing around with that this morning, and that would be Keane, the band Keane, right? And we were joking around about how they get compared to Genesis. They got compared to Genesis in the beginning, which they're of course not. But where they are similar to Genesis is that piano in the back is called a CP70, which is like that's the Peter Gabriel piano that you hear on all the slow Peter Gabriel songs.
Right.
And Genesis, what's his name? Tony Banks has one. They used to tour with them. Keane's the only one. Keane's the only band now that tours with them at all. Coldplay sometimes, so Keane. That's why that sound is, and that's the greatest piano in the world to write music on. So that's why I have it in my office, and I use it all the time. So,
but I was saying, as being the old prog rocker that I am, that it's one thing for a band to copy another band's style or an homage or just be influenced by them. It's another thing to actually have the same piece of equipment. And when King Crimson hit it big within the Court of the Crimson King and then a couple other albums, and they apparently decided to sell some of their equipment, Tony Banks and Genesis bought the Mellotron from King Crimson. So the same Mellotron that you're hearing on in the Court of the Crimson King is probably the same one that you hear on Return of the Giant Hogweed or Musical Box or Suppers, right? It's unbelievable. That's the same. I mean, how much is that thing worth?
The Mellotrons, I've only seen one in my entire life, and oddly enough, it was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We have Kevin with us today. A Mellotron is a really bizarre instrument, really expensive, crazy big. The first sampled instrument. So what it would do is it had, for every note you press down on the keys, it would have like a whole set of tapes, and you drop the tapes in, and each tape. So it was like, now they sample songs. You can play, like, if you want to have a violin sound or whatever on a synthesizer, you can just play it and it samples the sound of synthesizer. Back then, Mellotrons, you'd hit the key and the tape of a violin playing that particular note would play. So that's literally how they did it. So it was a bunch of tapes playing. So when you would play it, if you held down the note long enough, the tape would start again. It would just, because it was only so long. So you could only hold down the note for I think it was 6 seconds on a Mellotron before you'd hear a click, which became part of the Mellotron sound to it. That clicking thing is part of that's like the cool thing of it, because that's those limitations. And then if you wanted to change to a flute sound, the other thing I can think about is Strawberry Fields Forever by the Beatles. The doot, 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 the beginning part, that's a Mellotron flute. And that's so I've never seen a Mellotron live in person ever, but I was at the Arc in Ann Arbor, which is a really cool venue to play at. And in the back room of the Arc, there was a Mellotron, and I friggin' lost my mind. I'm like, how would they have this? It's just like in the dressing room of this studio. I think there's probably only a couple hundred in the world. And I'm back there, and I'm like, it was just insane.
And ironically, Aki, you mentioned the Beatles, and today, from our friend Simon Dingley, who's a massive Beatles fan, today is the 50th anniversary of the announcement that Paul was quitting the Beatles. Which, it's funny because I saw an interview with him on Howard Stern a couple of years ago where he said, well, actually, John left the band a lot earlier than that, but I basically, it was me who took the brunt of the abuse, because he was the one who officially said, I'm quitting and I'm going to do my own solo album. But it was actually John who left first.
Kevin's the only one who would remember anything like that.
Well, I do. I mean, it was a really big deal when the Beatles, broke up, to be sure. And, that was at a time too. And I've kind of told this story before where, probably on this podcast, but, music back then, we didn't have as many options for entertainment. So when you were a young kid, you were into music and you were into sports, and, both of them were equal in terms of, what you paid attention to. The weekly charts of where songs were ranked and stuff was a really big deal. In the 1960s, you'd go to your local Kruski's department store to pick up your, Keener 13 hit chart.
Nice.
So it was a big deal. And so when when the Beatles played Ed Sullivan, everybody tuned in on a Sunday night. when we were kids. Like, you talked about it during the day. The Beatles are going to be on tonight. Let's, sit down and watch it. So when they broke up, it was a huge story. And, the Yoko Ono's role in all that. This was pre, National Enquirer tabloid, or at least.
Can you imagine if Twitter existed at the time?
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Yeah. But even without that, it was fodder for, not only water cooler discussions, but, when you're in grade school, you kind of talked about that, or high school. It was kind of a big deal.
Well, my mom is one of the people, when you watch the Beatles documentaries, my mom's one of the people who was at the airport watching them come in, screaming behind the fences. That was my mom, literally. She's living with us right now. We watched a documentary about the Beatles the other night that she loved. And she got to see him live, and then I got to take her a couple years ago to Paul McCartney live, which was fun. But that's she was definitely that person. But let's get into hockey. We got some stuff to get into today. So
we'll save Russ's pre-show for a post-show or mid-show.
Yeah, we'll do it maybe tomorrow. And we've got Kevin on some. Kevin's been talking to some important people. I want to hear what that's all about. We got Pierre LeBrun, and we have our predictions. And then I last night went back into the alternate reality. Kevin, you didn't miss the first night of the alternate reality where I went into and saw the first 3 games played. I'll give you the scores of those later. But then the 5 games that were played last night in the alternate reality where there is no coronavirus, I have the results of those too. So we'll talk about those briefly as well. So I was up really late. I'll tell you, one of them went to triple overtime. I'm exhausted. So let's move on to to the show. Ready? Here we go. It is the 10th. Yes, thank God, made it to the 10th. Hello, Hockey World. It is Friday, April 10th, 2020.
I'm Michael Agello, and in this reality and an alternate reality, I'm extremely attractive.
I'm Kevin Allen, and I don't even know how to follow that.
Good night, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. I'm Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is a podcast that keeps you up on the comings and goings of the hockey world in this and all other realities on Monday through Friday. At this time to fill you in on the comings and goings. I'm in an endless loop. All right, let's go right to Kevin, because Kevin, you have some news about. Well,
piggybacking off, Pierre LeBrun had it first for the Athletic about the fact that there's a clear hope that we're going to not only have hockey this summer but resume the regular season. Mm-hmm. And he got it, and it was out there. But I've been talking to people as well, and that's the clear sense I have now. I think there's a big difference. There's hope. There's not a plan.
Right.
It's all based on the fact that there is a desire from President Trump and government officials to get the economy rolling.
Right.
So I think there's a belief that sports is going to be a part of that, and NHL is going to try to feed into that. And what I've been told, and I've been talking to general managers and people that are connected into the hockey world to kind of know what's going on. And what I've been told is that there would be a 3-week training camp. Originally, they thought it would be 4 weeks, but there is some hope that if there is a relaxation of the standards from the states, that they can at least get players to get into the workout even before getting them to training camp. So if we can get a training camp started at some point in May, and there'd be 3 weeks and then you'd play the regular season, in July, then, we'd be right back where we've talked before of August and September playing a 4-round Stanley Cup. And the reason why, and everyone seems to be accepting the idea that they may have to, and no one knows for sure how this is going to work out, but it depends on where we are in the virus world, but that they would accept the fact that they may play in empty arenas. But the reason they want to play these regular season games is there is sort of a belief that, we've got to be fair to everybody, that, this is important stuff in terms of, rolling back to 68 games or taking a percentage of winning, which we all just kind of throw around. There's a kind of a feeling that, there's just not fairness in that. We need to play out. It's all based on an 82 game, schedule. It's one thing to start out and everybody knows you're going to play 48. But when you start out thinking you're going to play 82, and then you at some point truncate and say, hey, we're going to do, wherever we're at now, there's some unfairness to that. So they'd rather just have it, play that out. And then, Pierre, now no one mentioned this to me, but Pierre has reported, and of course, Pierre is a very good reporter, that we're talking 5-game series in the first 3 rounds, and then a 7-game in the Stanley Cup final. So that would be make sense based on what people were just telling me, that there'd be abbreviated series in the first 3 rounds. Now, all of this is, as I said, it's just hope, because like as I'm writing a column about this, and it's hard for me to look at the, I'm wearing a face mask to get gas, and I'm looking and seeing that Philadelphia and DC and Baltimore are just starting to be hot spots. So it's hard for me to balance that with the idea that in May we're going to start a training camp. Now, I also sort of have been a student of the way that Gary Bettman manages, and it's hard for me to believe that he would be anything but cautious. Right. So, if we do get to the point where we're going to do this, I think it'll be because Gary Bettman is satisfied that the risk is not great. But there's so many hurdles that have to be jumped over, and we got to find out about testing. Will they test all the players beforehand? What's going to be the protocol if somebody becomes ill? What do you do then? You're going to have to get an agreement between the Players Association, and this shouldn't be hard, and the NHL regarding July 1st. And then we're going to have to finalize when the free agent signing period is going to be. And even before then, we're going to have to sort of figure out what we're going to do economically. Like one of the GMs mentioned to me that, if depending on how many games, the loss of even regular season revenue can be 20% for some of these teams. So you're going to have to sort of decide whether or not there's going to be any cooperation in what the salary cap is going to look like for next season.
Big point.
So there's a lot of issues, and it sure seems clear that they also know that for safety reasons and for economic reasons, even if they open it up for people to come, they may not fill the arena. So I think there's a recognition that this is going to cause a disturbance in the force for 2 seasons.
Well, a couple questions, Kev. One, you're probably right in terms of the willingness of people to come back to arenas. I think I saw a poll yesterday. They said it was like 60 to 70% of people would not feel comfortable going back to a sporting event unless there was a vaccine developed for COVID-19, and that's probably 12 months away at the
very earliest.
Right. Now, a couple things. One, Bettman has continued through, and it was a little interpretation that he might have been coming off of this, but he's always said that if they come back, that he wanted to play regular season games, and then this week we heard about the rollback to 68. Is this a symptom of the fact that he doesn't want to play an expanded playoff of 20 or 24 teams, that he wants to have everybody play the same amount of games and then 16 teams like they normally have?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think there's a thought being that they want to make this as normal as possible. But I think it seems to be important to the league to play 82 regular season games because of the fairness issue.
Right.
Otherwise it's just not fair. If you don't get, again, I don't think they'd have any problem if it had been decided beforehand that we're going to play 48 or 60 or 53.
Right. Yeah.
But, to somehow arbitrarily decide, in the middle of a season, how you're going to determine playoff, it just seems, unfair. And I think they want to try to make sure that they at least have, fairness above all else.
Now, LeBron said that they weren't married to 82. It could be 74, it could be 76, 78, as long as there's the same amount for everybody. But the one thing that and we talked about this earlier in the week about the possibility of neutral sites, like North Dakota was brought up, Manchester, New Hampshire. Chris Johnston brought up Buffalo because they have 2 rinks and they could handle a number of teams at the same time. I'm assuming that they're thinking of that because of places like New York City and Philadelphia and Washington that are hotspots and could be hotspots in June and July, and they need a plan B in case that is the case.
I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
They're trying to just figure out, contingencies, based on. I mean, there are some cities, I looked it up, and there are places where they haven't had much, action. In North Carolina, I looked that up, and they haven't been overrun like some of the other places.
I don't think they're doing much testing there, Kev. They seem to be late to the game too.
So, but they don't seem to have, the hospitals aren't being overrun. So
you're not being overrun right now.
Yeah. The only thing I question about trying to get to the 82 or close to it is, like, there are some teams, like, why are we bringing them back at all? They had no chance for the playoffs. You're just sort of wasting time because,
draft order is what I was told.
Just for draft order.
Draft order, and in a way, the regular season games are preseason games for teams that are going to be in the playoffs.
And the other rink, I question the Manchester because I've been there and I don't think it's a great rink. Why not Kansas City? That's a rink that they started to use in the ECHL. I know people are out there, and that seemingly is a better rink than Manchester. I know the NHL was close to using it a couple of years ago. Now we're not even hearing about it.
Well, I think they're more concerned about, the logistics of being able to get there, hotels, ice conditions. Like, I don't really think they're worried about, what city it's in. That's my impression.
Okay.
That they're just trying to make sure. Like, that's one of the things. Like, it's a very nice rink in North Dakota, but several people have mentioned to me there are no hotels there, or none.
There's 2 hotels.
So, it is a beautiful rink.
And in the case of Buffalo, there's a hotel right on top of the Harbor Center, so you basically could house 2 or 3 teams in that Marriott right in Buffalo.
Well, you would have to have Evander Kane move out, right? He probably still has a room.
No, I think he moved out already. At least some of the girls at 716 are sure he moved out. But
yeah, there you go. There you go.
The thing about it is, and this is kind of what I'm going to write on my column. I don't know how I feel about all this.
I agree with you.
Like, part of me feels just like every other fan. I would be excited to have hockey and sports back. I miss getting up in the morning and checking baseball scores and doing. That's part of my routine. Yeah. And I would love to sit on my couch. And that's where I would want to be, on my couch and watching hockey. On the other hand, as I said, I'm going to the gas station in a full mask and glove. Right. So how can we be playing, hockey? So I just think everyone's got to be cautious. I believe, knowing Gary Bettman, he will be.
So Kev, let me ask you this. My sense is I feel like Bettman's closer to giving up the regular season than to worry about if he's not having the playoffs. There's got to be a drop dead where it's like, all right, you know what? We did lose the regular season, but we can recoup the playoffs here, right? There has to be.
Well, I mean, I think they'll look at everything, but they don't. It's pretty clear through Pierre LeBrun's reporting, and from what I was told, that they really want to try to figure out a way to have a fair regular season, and they don't think that right now that it is fair because nobody knew going in what was going to happen, and you didn't sort of have any knowledge. And so if you do go in and then everybody knows, hey, look, we're not going to play 82, but we're going to play 78. So now you got okay, we're going to be able to get 8 more games to get in. Then they think there's some fairness to it, and I understand it. And to be honest, even if they don't have there's also a thought too, and we didn't bring this up, and it's an important point. If you don't play regular season games, you're actually going to have to play exhibition games because you got to get up to.
No, that's fair, but
so you might as well play the regular season games and
Okay, so then
I mean, even if you just got everybody to like 72 games or something like that.
Well, there are teams at 72 now.
No, but I mean, yeah, I know, but maybe 75. I don't know. Maybe pick a number that, or if you have a team say a team's playing each other twice, maybe they play a doubleheader where you play half as long games or something. There's got to be things you can do.
Well, there's a couple of teams though that I'm not going to say they're going to want to tank, but after you come back from all this, how motivated are some teams going to be to play their best or to try and get Alexis Lafreniere? Like, I think that is going to play a massive part in this, because I think more than a few teams would be up to the tanking based on the fact that they're not going anywhere anyhow. And then that'll affect the standings too.
I think the worst case scenario, or the scenario that if they can't play regular season games, they are going to roll back. So everybody is at 68
They're going to be at one number for sure.
Yeah, they have to be. And then, you can say that it's still unfair for the team that missed the playoffs by a point or two, but at least they're all at the same level of games, and then they can say, okay, well, that's, this is extraordinary circumstances. We had to do it. And, I just don't know whether there's going to be time to play.
And can I throw this out there too? I mean, because Kevin, do you think that there's something that, Gary Bettman doesn't play games usually, but don't you think? And I'm not saying
he probably plays canasta. I'm getting Bettman plays canasta.
I'm not saying he's playing games here either. But doesn't he have to do this and say that we need to try to get the regular season in? Because you've got a lot of owners out there that want to know that he's doing everything he can to do that, even if it's not possible.
Well, I mean, I know what you're saying, that it's the PR thing to do, but I do. It seems sincere when I talk to people that we're going to try to get them in. But I mean, you said it earlier, and you're right on.
Yeah.
Like when Fauci always says it. The virus determines what we do. Well, that the virus is going to determine the NHL season as well. Right. So it'll determine whether or not they can squeeze in some regular season games. But I do think there is some merit to the idea. Well, we got to have training camp anyway, and we have to, and we're going to have to probably play some exhibition games in order to get people up to playoff speed. So if we're going to do that, we might as well try, to get 78 regular season games in.
Could we play regular season games without people, and then bring people in for the playoffs? Like,
I don't know. Apparently,
I don't think they're bringing people in anytime soon.
Yeah, no one has seemed to know. I don't think that has been even. I mean, I'm sure it's been discussed, but there doesn't seem to be any plan for that. And to be honest, I just don't think people are willing to get serious about it because they have no idea what it's going to look like. Like, it feels like we're sort of turning the corner, and they've announced that Sunday will be the apex and so forth, but that doesn't mean.
No. Yeah, you could have a second wave. You don't know yet.
Right, it's all that.
But here's the other thing. Why do we hear nothing out of Adam Silver other than I'll talk to you in May, and we hear all the speculation with the NHL? It's completely different takes for the NBA and the NHL, which is unusual.
No, you want to know? I'll give you the reason why. Because the NBA actually makes a ton of money, a lot more than the NHL. They get a lot of money from their television contracts. And if they have to throw away their season, it's not going to be a destruction of their league. They can survive it. I think the NHL has to play the games. They have to, get some sort of income, because we know it's going to be 30 to 35% escrow next year, and that's going to destroy teams.
Yeah, you got to forget about the escrow, Mike. I don't even think that's an issue.
Okay.
Because I've talked to players, and they can sort of get that. I do believe there's going to be a summit where the Players Association, I don't think the escrow is the issue. I just think it's the actual loss of the money.
That's what I mean. And that's what I mean.
Because this is 50-50 split. So whatever's lost, the players are going to lose it too. So
you're going to lose $1 to $1.5 billion. That's the rough estimate of if.
Yeah, so they'll have to sort of figure it out, and something will have to be done, and everybody will, lose accordingly. But but you're right about the television revenue. The television revenue makes all the difference in the world. It seems like, the NHL has done so much better, but that still pales in comparison to the other leagues. So
it's true. All right, well, good stuff. I mean, at least, we can take some hope out of it, but and like you say, we have no idea.
I think it's realistic talk. I do.
We have no. Hope is such a hard.
I don't know what it is.
There's hope with no plan. Hope is such a hard word for people. I still have written right here.
Because Peter will tell you hope is not.
Yeah, that's what I have written on my desk here. That from Peter Teste from long ago when he said hope is not a plan. I have written on my desk right here.
Yeah, so, I don't know what it is because me being the president of the Pessimist Hockey Writers Association, I'm still optimistic that they're going to play games. I think
they're going to as well, but there are more people than us saying there is no way. And then when you do hear some public officials, and again, it's citywide, and I think this is what's painting people's opinions. When you get someone that, let's say in Los Angeles, that says nothing's happening here till Thanksgiving, and that may be true, but that's in that city, in that region. It doesn't mean that's the only place on earth where this game can be played. I think that's the part that people have a tough part.
Well, it's pretty fascinating that California teams are in the playoffs, right? I mean, that's something that when you think about it, we haven't had that for a long time. California is a tough state, but.
And it's not like the NHL is going to go to play games on an Indian reservation like another thing talking about doing, right, Russ?
Yeah, the UFC, that was ridiculous.
Yeah. All right, so at least we have some news. Like send in the chat room. I did something. We'll go with it. I mean, it's all speculation. It's all if this, then that type stuff. But
can I ask Kevin, because Russ was going to bring this up. I just want to bring this up because Kevin is such a big baseball fan, and Russ and I are as well. And we'll leave you out of this because we know that you don't like baseball. But
I'll get a drink.
The proposal that came out today of basically a realignment of the American and National League to sort of fit the Cactus League teams and the Grapefruit League teams, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy seeing a division of the Yankees, Phillies, Blue Jays, Tigers, and Pirates.
That's such a horrible division. That's a
Yankees can win 100 of 100 games.
They'll win 130 games in that division.
Yeah. No, I actually hadn't heard that. I've actually been working on some things today. I'm trying to finish up the last bit of editing on the Mike Emmerich book, and then I've been working on this story about the league. So I haven't heard that. That's wild. That is really wild. It will be entertaining just because we get to see teams that we don't see obviously as often.
But they might chuck the DH in there too now, Kev. Yeah. And I'm telling you, I will go ballistic if all of a sudden, besides the electronic umpire, they throw in the DH, they throw in this realignment, all in the same swoop. I'm really.
Just think, Cespedes will have a place to play.
Yeah, if he could. Yeah, if he's still healthy, then. But the idea is that really bothers me, Kev. That's too much change. You're basically changing now the complete look of the sport, or you're having one season that's a complete anomaly when they go back to the other divisions the next year. Like, why can't you keep the divisions the same and just redo the schedule? I don't understand.
Well, it sounds like they're trying to get, you don't want to switch back and forth between Arizona and Florida.
Right.
So, I mean, all those, teams that you mentioned are all in the close proximity if they're going to play all the games in the spring training homes. I mean, when I went to spring training, I saw the Tigers play in Bradenton where the Pirates are. Mm-hmm. And, I believe, do the Phillies still play in Clearwater?
Clearwater, yep.
Yeah, so, that's obviously why they're doing it.
And the Yankees are in Tampa.
So right.
At most, it's a bus trip of an hour or two. So
I've driven around there a lot in that area.
Well, I mean, they're going to go fanless too, but it's just the amount of change is just the part that I don't think they realize how much that is going to upset baseball fans, even if baseball's back. Even if it's back, we're all going to be bitching about it. That's all.
But come on, baseball fans. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but you know what? You're going to be complaining no matter what they do.
I mean, people are there. Look what's happening in the world. I mean, if we're gonna sit there and
argue over complaining, if you argue over
by now, time to sit there and fight about the DH. Okay, this is not a time to sit there and.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to be fighting about the DH.
This is what's wrong with baseball and baseball fans in general. I'm sorry.
Well,
Dr. Fauci, are you in favor or not of the DH?
You're a soccer fan.
Baseball would still have a friggin' 2-line pass.
Soccer fans should pipe down. That's what I say.
Can I tell you though? I'm pretty sure I didn't bring this up on this podcast. I've talked about it on other podcasts. You know where I was
podcast, but go on. Yes,
my solace, and finding something that's competition. As I found it in the Professional Bowlers Association. PBA. Now, hear me out on this. Okay? All right. And this is why it works.
Go ahead.
So I've discovered on Fox you can watch PBA. Now, when I was a kid, bowling was huge.
Oh, it was
big. I watched a little.
Yeah, it was on all the time. We all, it was definitely.
Yeah, ABC channel.
Chris Schenkel doing
Schenkel. It was a highly ranked show. It was way up there. The ratings were strong. My grandmother and I used to watch it when I was a kid. And the athletes in bowling were big. They were on commercial.
They were enormous.
It was big. So I have this. I have it in my blood. It's in my DNA.
Okay.
And now I've discovered that on Fox they have reruns of all the tournaments that's happened this season. Well, as all of you know, none of us have any idea who won the Oklahoma Open or the World Series of Bowling.
Kevin, it was all over Twitter.
No one has any idea who won those tournaments.
I had Mark Roth minus 10 pins.
Well, so what I'm saying,
Dean in the chat room says we've hit the low point officially of the HockeyBuzzcast.
You really have.
Yeah. So I'm willing to retire after talking about this.
That's fine.
That's what we need to do.
No, I mean, I if you guys want, I can start videotaping the bocce tournaments. But
what I'm saying is, you can watch them and act as if they're live because you have no idea what.
You can watch sailing the same way, like you're just watching something you don't know the outcome of. That's all.
That's exactly right. But I've enjoyed it. I have enjoyed bowling. It's given me the one thing that I can actually root for. Now I'm willing to retire and step down from being on this show.
You want something fun to do?
I got my bowling.
We're not letting you off that easy.
No, you gotta stay. The fun thing to do sometime, watch cricket, okay, on YouTube and try to figure out what the hell is happening. Like that's
okay.
That's a fun thing to sit there and just do. Like watch a cricket game and speculate as to how they're what's happening.
I'm gonna get yelled at here. We went to a friend's wedding in Jamaica. And the minute we went in the hotel, we're getting settled. We have a perfect ocean view, and I see that there's cricket on. And I'm like, I got to understand this game a little. And my wife was not happy. And so I said, here's what I'll do. I'm going to put the TV out on the terrace so we can look out at the ocean. But I want to watch cricket because I want to see what's going on. And we went with it for a little while. And then you realize you could have one inning for like 3 days. So I had to turn it off.
I've tried, and it's hilarious to get with really creative people who will tell you how the score is being kept, like what just happened if you don't know anything about cricket. Like you're sitting there and say, okay, I think if they bounce it twice, they get a point, or that guy has to move over there. If it's hit in the air, watching
the World Series of Poker doesn't count because I don't consider watching somebody fumble their chips as entertaining.
No, but bowling was big, and I remember as a kid,
bowling was big. I could tell you a few of the
now as an adult, I realized what bowling actually is. Bowling is one of the few sports that you can actually.
I think if I had more friends, honestly, I think if I had more friends at the time I was watching bowling, I wouldn't have been watching bowling.
Mike, I know, is in a bowling league, so we're sitting there saying,
"Yeah, I
was in a bowling league a couple times.
I know who Nelson Burton Jr. and Mark Roth and all those, Dick Weber. I know those guys.
But got a couple strikes and the red pin was in the middle. I know what's happening.
Kevin doesn't realize it. He said it best when he mentioned his grandmother. That's my problem with bowling is your grandmother could be better than you in bowling.
Yeah, she could have been.
I found quite often that the kids in our high school that were terrible athletes were the bowlers. They managed to be they were awful athletes, but then you would show up at a bowling party and they were incredible. Like that was the strangest thing. Like they couldn't make any other sport, but when it came to bowling, they romped.
Heck, I think we're going to get to our predictions and stuff.
Yeah, let's get to some predictions here. All right. Yes, moving on.
I don't think you should ask Kevin about that other series, or we'll run the end of the show. I'm telling you.
Yeah, do not. This is a no Philadelphia Pittsburgh.
Right.
Zone.
Don't go Philly.
You guys just don't want to lose. You guys are such wimps.
No, it's not that.
All right. That's okay. You're such wimps because it's 2-2. You're not going to lose. All right. So we've been talking, Kevin, about the playoff series as if they were going to be done percentage-wise, and if we're starting now, because this is the time of year that if you don't do predictions, I feel like I'm not living. I feel like I'm not living if I'm not predicting something right now. So we're pretending that this series we're assuming these, which no one seems to think they're going to do since I started doing this, that there's going to be a percentage thing, but it was pretty big when I started doing it that we might go on winning percentage. And if that's the case, and these series are going to start in July with everyone's healthy, what would happen in them? And that's been something that we've been talking about. So we've gone through a bunch of series. I wanted to go on next to what I think would be the most fun series ever to cover, and a fun series to watch, which would be the Vegas Knights and the Nashville Predators in the playoffs. And what do we think would happen in this series? I mean, this is first of all, I would love to work for a newspaper that sends me on the beat between Nashville and Vegas. First off, that would be just,
it could kill you. It could kill you.
There's no question about that.
Nobody would sleep. It'll be the series where no one sleeps.
No one sleeps at all.
And also, it will be dueling marketing departments.
Great marketing stuff.
The pre-game and the drinking. And nobody will sleep. I like that. And on the ice, both teams, probably didn't live up to expectations this season, although Vegas has picked it up.
They picked it up, and the Predators at times did too. And Predators went through a coaching change this year. Remember, the last time when they played each other, it was Vegas taking 2 of 3. The most recent being a 3-0 win in Nashville on February 1st. But Nashville won on October 15th in Vegas 5-2. And then the rubber game was an overtime game. So you're looking at really basically a draw between the regular season. What happened with these 3 teams? Vegas wins in overtime 4-3. This all comes down to goaltending, right? It always does with the Predators. Don't you think? I think this series is about
who's the goalie?
I think it's got to be Pekka Rinne. You got to go with Pekka Rinne.
It's not going to be Rinne. I don't think so. The way they were playing Saros before.
You think they go back to? You think they go to Saros in the playoffs, Kevin?
I think it's possible. He's really been the better goalie for sure. Although I think with this series, normally I agree with you on how a playoff series is about, but don't you think it's really about the Predators special teams? They've been so horrible on their special teams.
Scoring has been an issue for them all year.
Yeah, and their power play has been bad. Their penalty killing has been bad.
I know that they got Ellis back a few weeks before
they did,
and he, either him or Yossi is the quarterback in the power play, so maybe him coming back would help them out. But Kev, and because we're talking about this series. And there were a number of teams that were affected by this, but teams at the deadline that made deals for rentals, and nobody is going to get screwed more than Vegas by trading a 2nd-round pick and Malcolm Subban for Robin Lehner, who I think played 2 or 3 games. And if we don't play the rest of the regular season, they gave up a 2nd-round pick for nothing. And then is the point of view of the league that's just your SOL and there's nothing that can be done, because that really stinks for a team like Vegas.
Yeah, it does, but I think it's more it's going to be viewed as just kind of an act of God. It's really nobody's fault. It just happened. So I to be honest with you, I hadn't even thought about that, but you're absolutely right. It does, but. It's like they want so much to play something that it sure feels like they're going to try to get something done. So,
go ahead,
Russ.
I was just going to say the same way people said I hate the Flyers based on my pick. They could say I hate the Predators. I'm going 4-1 Vegas. Fleury is going to have a really good series. Again, Nashville won't be able to score, right. and I think even though Vegas won't be scoring tremendous goals like buckets, they'll be winning these games.
Yeah, I think that the addition of Alec Martinez solidified their blue line, and now we know that Fleury is probably going to play every game, so that's why it's sort of Leonard, the acquisition of Leonard. Really, he's not going to play in the playoffs. I think Vegas in 5, maybe 6 at the utmost. But just one more thing on that, on the point I was making before. People said that the team that was the biggest loser in terms of trades, because if the season had ended, was Tampa, because they gave up 2 first-round picks for Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman. But at least those guys, like Alec Martinez, are under contract next year. They still would get another year out of those guys. The teams that traded for rentals, those players conceivably could be gone after playing 2 or 3 games.
Yeah.
That's what stinks.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It happens. I'm going to give the Predators a little more of a chance in this series than you guys are, just because I think based on experience, and the Predators were playing better hockey.
Yes.
At the end, and they also are playing more defensive hockey, more position, which might geared more towards the playoffs. They're playing more playoff type hockey. I felt as if Hines, when he went in, put a system in that was a little too complicated to put midway through a season. for them, and I think that hurt the Predators for a while. It seemed like when I watched them that it was such a shift from Laviolette to Hines' system that there was about a dozen games there where the Predators couldn't get out of their own way. Did you get that at all, Kev? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I there's probably something to that. I think there was an adjustment period. I mean, they went from one of the few offensive coaches in the game, to a guy who preached accountability, defensive accountability. So and a lot of guys had their minutes sliced. Star players, Forsberg, Johansson, these guys, had minutes shaved because they didn't perform to Hines' liking. So I think there was an adjustment period there. You're right there, I think there's an okay chance for the Predators to win it, but I'm taking Vegas too.
In Vegas, yeah, I'm going to go Vegas in 7, but I think it's a series. I do think it's a series. And the next one I want to get to is one of the more fascinating ones when I was looking into it, and that would be Colorado and Dallas.
Talk about contrasting styles.
And the fact that Dallas won all 4 games the two teams played this year against each other.
Yeah.
Which to me is, I do find that the regular season matchups, when you have something like that, it tends to at least carry over to the beginning of a series. If Colorado can't get it going, it becomes a factor. Like, it doesn't become a factor if Colorado can win the first game or two. But if Dallas steals game 1, then it becomes, we've lost 5 straight to Dallas. It becomes that.
Well, the one, I mean, Colorado could be the team that benefits the most from a delay in the playoffs because, Kadri was hurt, McKinnon was hurt, Landeskog at one point was hurt. So was, on defense, Makar was hurt for a while, and Grubauer was hurt. It was probably going to be Francouz starting in goal for them. All those players are going to be healthy if and when if the playoffs start in July. So the one thing that's going to be tough for them is Dallas plays shutdown hockey. They play, which is unbelievable because 3 years ago they were abysmal defensively, but they play shutdown hockey. The thing is that every game is going to be 2-1, Kev. It's going to be like a chess match. Yeah,
I'm going to take Dallas in this. I am, but that there's always going to be an upset. There always is in the first. Yeah. So this is my pick.
This is a good upset. I mean,
Colorado, I love the way they're going to play, the way they play. I love McKinnon. He's just, he probably doesn't get enough credit. He's right up there with, Connor McDavid in terms of entertainment and value to being fun to watch. And I like what Joe Sakic has done to surround them with everything. But, I just think this is a series that the matchup kind of works for Dallas. And, there's going to be an upset. That's going to
be Colorado gets home ice, right?
Colorado gets home ice for sure.
Yeah. I think they're winning 4-3. I think even though Ben Bishop will finally be healthy for this series, I still don't think it's enough. I think Dallas is good. I think at the end of the day, though, they don't have the scoring that Colorado has. And even if you mitigate some of that, they're not going to be able to mitigate all of it because they'll have Rantanen, they'll have everybody. They're loaded, and they roll 3 better lines than Dallas can roll as far as for scoring, and their defense is good, and Cale Makar is healthy, so I don't think Dallas will beat them. Really good series.
The only thing you have to worry about from the point of view of Colorado is them getting frustrated in the first couple games. If they get stonewalled by Bishop, if Dallas just shuts them down, they get 50 shots and they can't beat Bishop or they can't get good scoring chances. They're a young enough team that they could get frustrated. And God forbid if you want to get Nazem Kadri frustrated, he'll get suspended for 3 games.
Now, this could be another series where Grubauer gets the first game, and if he doesn't do well, then he loses the job again, by the way.
That was a big question I had. Who's the goalie for Colorado in the series? Because Grubauer hasn't been their best goalie.
It'll be Grubauer for game 1, but again, if he doesn't do well, they'll throw Francouz in, and Grubauer will lose out again.
I think he'll go Grubauer game 1.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah. I mean, other guy's been the guy. He's been. The other thing is really fascinating about the series. Colorado, for all the firepower in the 4 games against Dallas this year, scored 6 goals.
Yeah,
6 goals in 4 games.
That's what'll make it a tough series. But I just think at the end, Dallas, Seguin hasn't shown me enough this season. Ben hasn't shown me enough this season. Even though they've picked it up defensively since the coaching change, and I think that's been a great thing for them, I still think they get edged out because they don't have enough offense.
They spent a ton of money on Pavelski, and he really hasn't produced that great. Radulov is not. I mean, guys like Hintz have had good years.
Hintz was their best player for a while because no one could score.
But the big names really haven't produced for them. I mean, their goals for was not great. So
we talked about all the other series, I believe. I think you've given our predictions.
Oh, wait, so you say 5 minutes for Pittsburgh Philly.
We have some time. Unless we want to go to we have either the alternate reality or
let Kevin be the judge because he's on this show. It's up to him.
Let me just fill Kevin in. By the way, Kev, in game 1, Eck basically took out Austin Matthews on a stretcher just to make it easy for Tampa Bay to beat.
He returned to the bench with 5 minutes to go in the last period, so no one knows what's going on. They won't tell us.
He termed it that he was crumpled in the corner.
Yeah, he got hit. Yeah, I mean, it was Hedman destroyed him, but the idea was, he comes back with 5 minutes to go in the game. The crowd goes crazy. He doesn't ever see the ice, and no one would talk after the game, of course, as to what's going on.
Well, the crowd
did not take the morning skate. Today, he did not take the practice yesterday, and he did not take today's morning skate. So whether he's back tonight or not, I don't know. Game 2, who knows?
That helps.
All right, so let's talk Flyers Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And then if anyone wants to stick around, I'll end the show with my reality from the 5 games last night because I have them all written down here. What happened? It's pretty crazy. All right, so Kevin, we got into a good debate about the Flyers Penguins series, and this is like a really good one.
Yeah.
And a hard one to predict, I think.
It is, and it's the rivalry. I mean, I still remember the story of when the last time the Penguins won the cup that they took it to Harrisburg in the state legislature, and the representatives from Philadelphia stood up above on the second floor and booed as it was wheeled into the Capitol. Like that's an intense rivalry when the politicians are involved in it. So for sure. And there's obviously we've had some things going on between Crosby and Giroux, and there's just so much going on. I think it'll be a great series too because we've had the Philadelphia Flyers exceed expectations, and yet this Pittsburgh team I think has shown it's still among the contending teams. Given all the injuries they've had, they still got Malkin and Crosby, which gives them an advantage that Philadelphia doesn't have. They don't have 2 players like that
for sure.
In net, they both have young goalies who have star potential. So
I think it was Matt Murray, don't you think?
Yeah, I guess. Their goaltending has been strange this season. Matt Murray obviously couldn't stop a basketball this season.
Yeah, right.
And then they got a big help, and then then Murray is back again. So
right.
I'd go with Pittsburgh just because I just always find it difficult to beat Crosby, but I see Philadelphia as a chance of winning it for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, that breaks the tie. So you're the third to go with Pittsburgh against 2.
He's on the wise side.
No, I think you guys. But to be fair, Mike and Russ gave Philly no chance in this.
No, I said
they could win, but I picked
Pittsburgh. You had them in 5.
I said 6.
Well, I'm going to give you the reason. I said 5 for this reason. The Flyers have a lot of inexperienced players. You're talking about a second-year goalie with no playoff experience, and I love Carter Hart, but you're still talking about a second-year goalie with no experience. You're talking about arrested Matt Murray, who has been through the grind, and you're talking about Pittsburgh having all their players back with a better defense than they've had in the last 2 years.
Right. And the key, and like I said, the key matchup, I think, and the key reason why Pittsburgh would be favored in this series is the matchup up the middle with Couturier matched up 1-on-1 with Malkin. That's a saw off. I think because Couturier has proved over his career that he could handle Malkin. But Kevin Hayes against Crosby is a distinct advantage for Pittsburgh. And then third line, if you're playing Derek Grant, who's played well for Philadelphia since they got him from Anaheim, you're talking about him going up against Jared McCann or Bukestad. I think that's an advantage for Pittsburgh.
Tough one too.
So, I mean, I think I give Philadelphia all the credit in the world for having a year better than I thought that they were going to have.
Yeah, agreed.
I just think that Pittsburgh is a deeper and better team.
I think Mike Sullivan's worth a win too in a playoff series.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. I mean, the Penguins have shown they can do that, but last year in the playoffs, the Penguins came up really.
Last year was a bad year. You will not get off of that. It was a bad year. They're allowed to have a bad year.
I know.
Patriots didn't win the Super Bowl every year, did they? No.
They got stoned by Robin Leonard.
Right.
All right, real quick. Last night's alternate reality games. Here they are. Ready? Okay, so the game I covered, since it was the closest to me, was in Washington. So I drove down to Washington to cover the Hurricanes and Capitals in the opening game, and the place was hopping. A lot of Joe Biden signs in the crowd, I must say. But as the game continued on,
was it sponsored by Geritol?
I should have said a lot of re-elect Hillary signs in the crowd, because this is the alternate reality. Anyway, but that's not the case. Although, Kevin doesn't know that in this alternate reality, one of the odd things about it is that there are no cell phones, which I thought is really strange. And but in this game was, and it's funny because yesterday we had Anthony on here, and he said that he could see the Capitals winning the series, but the Hurricanes winning game one, and that is what happened. Teravainen scores 2 goals, Ovechkin gets 1, and that game it ends as 2-1. It was kind of a boring game, I have to say, like back and forth a little bit, but Carolina really played really that typical Brindamore road game that they just dumped the puck and dumped the puck and dumped the puck, and there's a lot of issues there.
Well, that would be 2 years in a row. If Carolina won the series, it'd be 2 years in a row they beat the Caps.
Right. Well, they took game 1. It's a long series still. The only thing I was kind of surprised between how well Mrazek played in this game. He was really impressive. 38 saves, I think. Yeah, 30.
It really is alternate reality.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
So then, of course, while I had on my iPad, which amazed everybody since there are no iPads or tablets or anything like that. I had my iPad on the press box, and I was watching the Bruins and Islanders game as best as I could. And this game was interesting because the Islanders took a 1-0 lead in the first period. Mayfield got a goal. And went back and forth.
Scott Mayfield got a goal.
Mayfield scored first.
That's like Ken Morrow scored an overtime goal.
It was from Barzal. DeBrusque in the second ties it. So we go into the third 1-1.
Matt Martin on a spinorama?
No. A nice pass from McAvoy. And then the third period, 5:48 in, John Moore scores for the Bruins.
Jeez.
which is really, and a really nice pass from Coyle. And then you think the game's over, but then with 33 seconds left, the Islanders have the goalie out. Barzal ties it. A nice. He deflects the shot from Josh Bailey. Go to overtime. It didn't take long. 1 minute into overtime. Patrice Bergeron, series 1-0 Boston.
Getting hot in here.
By the way, Russ has a new book. But there you go. All right, ready? The Blues and the Flames. Another overtime game, and this one kept people up all night. I can tell you that much. This was a long game in the classic Blues Flames styles from the 80s. These guys battled it out. First period was Barbashev, 1-0. Second period, O'Reilly. So 2-0 going into the third. Looks like the Flames are out of it. And then Matthew Tkachuk scores 2 goals within 35 seconds. 10:59.
Oh, look at that face.
What? 10:59, 11:20. Oh yeah, there you go.
Look at that face.
Matthew Tkachuk ties it. 10:59 and 11:20 in the third period. We go to overtime.
Sorry.
We go through the first overtime. We go through the second overtime. And just as I'm ready to get up to go to the bathroom at the end of the second overtime with about 35 seconds to go, exactly, David Perron, boom, it wins it. St. Louis takes it up. St. Louis up 1-0 in that series. Vegas, Colorado. There you go. Colorado and Dallas. Talked about. This was another overtime game. Not quite as long. So this is the third overtime game of the night, which we had. Colorado takes a 2-0 lead in the first period. Burakovsky and Kadri got the 2 goals actually. In the second period, Sagan would get a goal, and then so we go in 2-1 into the third. And right off the bat, Donskoy scores. So now we're looking at 3-1. It looks like for sure, this is all Colorado's game. But Pavelski and Jamie Benn at 16:22 and 18:27 tie it at 3. We go to overtime, and sure enough, in overtime, not that long this time, but not sure, 12:20 in, it would be Joe Pavelski again winning it. So Dallas takes game 1, and finally, sorry, there's 5 games. Vegas and Nashville. not too different than you guys predicted. This was really kind of a boring game, I had to say, unfortunately, because I wanted more. But the Predators just trying to play defense, not able to get the offense going. Marc-Andre Fleury shuts them out 3-0 in Vegas. The goals were, I had it written down right here. They were here we go. Sorry, here goals for Vegas. Goals are Smith, Stephenson, and Stone. There you have it. 3-0. So that all the series are now one game in. Tonight you have Tampa, Toronto again, Philly, Pittsburgh, and just 2 games tonight because they're moving. They're moving the series a little bit to 3 to 5. 2 games tonight, and tomorrow night we got 4 and then 4 again. So anyway, we'll talk more about that. I'll talk all about all the games on Monday. And I'm sure you guys can't wait. Like I said, Matthews did not skate today in the morning skate. So I don't know. I don't have any idea what's going on.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks for
that. Got it.
I do want to mention on Tuesday, we're going to have Lisa Dillman and Eric Stevens on. We're going to talk a lot of West Coast hockey, Kings and Ducks. That should be good conversation.
Yeah, and also we'll have Peter Harling next week, who does prospects for Dauber Prospects. We'll talk some 2020 NHL draft stuff.
Fantastic. And I'll have more of this. I simulated the all-time Blackhawks and all-time Red Wings last night. The Red Wings taking a 3-0 win against the all-time Blackhawks. Blackhawks actually scored a goal in the first period that was disallowed because of a high stick, but that would have been a 1-0 Blackhawks lead. It was one of those games. It was completely like the goaltender for the Terry Salchuk stole the game for the Red Wings.
Terry Salchuk's long dead.
I know he stole the game for the Red Wings last night. And really the best player on the ice, which odd 3 assists from Chris Chelios on the Red Wings. Chris Chelios on the Blackhawks took 2 penalties.
Oh, this is the classic league again. I see. I'm forgetting the realities here. I'm sorry. And
then, but the best player on the ice, honestly, the player that really impressed me the most, well, the line that did not work at all, which I thought would work, was Mikita, Hull, and Marian Hossa. I figured that would work, but it didn't. But the one thing I will say is it was fun to watch Fedorov, Yzerman, and Shanahan playing together. That was a great line. They really took it apart, and it was impressive. So they looked really good out there. And Yzerman scored a goal, and Fedorov had a goal. So anyway, that was that. We're going to play more games this weekend, and we'll talk to you then. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Absolutely. Have a safe weekend, everybody. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you on